I see my name in shining lights, yeah, a different city every night. Oh, I swear the world better prepare for when I'm a billionaire.
It's time to get down to business on the weekend's #1 business program. Known as the King of Networking, your host, Shalom Klein, has worked with thousands of entrepreneurs and created countless jobs. So, to success, let's get down to business.
And indeed, we're all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship and business. We talk a lot about business here. You're on with Get Down to Business, and I'm your host, Shalom Klein. Remember, you can always download podcasts from Get Down to Business on my website at syklein.com. And while you're there, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Shalom Klein. It's going to be a jam-packed week of content and information you'll not want to miss. So let's jump right in with the one and only Sarah Sharky Harkness. And this Australian mother of 3 and successful business owner is launching a book and a nonprofit to assemble the world's greatest minds and visionaries. Sharky, welcome to the program. Thanks so much for joining us.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. It's an honor to join you. So you have quite a background. You've gone through a lot. And my understanding, you spent almost 2 years in the hospital during COVID, and you've survived that experience, and now you're thriving. And I want to talk all about it. So please, let's jump right in. And if you don't mind, tell our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Prior to all that madness, and I'm absolutely happy to chat all about it, I worked for Salesforce for about 10 years, went on to Marketo, GitLab, and Dropbox pre-IPO, and did the rounds with the unicorns, and then started a business with my 2 co-founders, Naz and Luke, really helping to optimize revenue for organizations of all sizes all around the world. Bit of revenue alchemy is what we call it. And then after my 3rd baby, basically very quickly within the space of less than 6 months, I got very, 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 very sick. Ended up having about 26 surgeries in the space of 3 years. It was 26 surgeries in 3 years. 3 of them brain surgery, and I had a stroke, went into a coma, and kind of came out the other side. I'd say probably about January, or actually I tell a lie, October was my last surgery of last year. And post-COVID, coming out of COVID, I went looking for some giants and came across Fountain Life and Dr. Guillermo Navarrete, who is my hero and really has helped cure me. I've lost 35 kilos in 6 months and really kind of come out the other side completely, albeit a little scarred, healed. It's a miracle.
It is. Amazing. Well, congratulations on all of that. And it's truly just a blessing. And that's amazing because now you're inspiring others. Now you have really taken those challenges and obviously this new book, Guided by Giants, a story of survival to thriving.
Yes.
And I know you talk a lot in the book about the recently launched Project Lotus. What is Project Lotus?
So Project Lotus really came about actually born out of a previous venture in Cattle Dog, but was really about creating safe places and incredible places and cultures to work. And so rolling that out of Cattle Dog and really kind of focusing in on that, I spent a week on NECA earlier this year with Richard and the team at Virgin Unite, and worked with the likes of Zarifa Garafi, who is doing incredible things, getting resources into Afghanistan for women and young women in particular. So I really wanted to focus my skills in on helping impact-based organizations to optimize their revenue funnels so that they can have the most impact. So it ended up being really a really nice symbiotic next phase of the career, but also something I'm deeply passionate about, which is hopefully helping as many of these communities to have as much impact as possible on the communities they're serving.
Absolutely. I'm chatting with Sarah Harkness, who I know, Sarah, your nickname became Sharky. I believe it happened while you were at Salesforce. And so I'm curious, for our listeners that obviously can't see you, what is that? What does that mean? And what's the message that you're trying to sort of inspire both listeners to this program and readers of the book with?
Look, I think everybody's got a little bit of shark in them, right? So it's in our nature to naturally survive. I mean, if you look at the kind of animal that a shark is, they're often misunderstood, they're often underestimated or overestimated, depending on the type of shark. But I guess the kind of key element for me is, and really what I'm hoping people come away from all of this is we actually don't have to do things on our own. We don't have to be a lone ranger, and we certainly should put up our hand to ask for help when we need it, and particularly when we're going through processes of transformation or processes of change or any kind of suffering or adversity. And there's so many different resources available. But I think that the number one thing I've kind of really learned over the last 4 years in particular is that it never did me any good to do it completely alone. Yes, absolutely. I can be proud of the adversity I overcame and how I had to battle most of that during a pandemic when people were not allowed to come and visit. So it was weeks and weeks and weeks in hospital in complete solitude and on your own, fighting the hardest battles of your life. But I always felt like I had presence with me or support, or at least the energy of my friends. And then when I found the Abundance 360 community and Tony and really the kind of wider groups that I've kind of really honed in and become a part of in the last 12 months in particular, I felt like I even found a family.
Yeah, absolutely. It's inspiring to hear how much you've gone through. I mean, it's just mind-boggling, honestly. Even I obviously prepared in advance for this conversation, but hearing you talk about it, you've come through so much. And as you keep saying, you not only survived, but you're thriving. And now you have this fantastic new book, Guided by Giants: A Story of Survival to Thriving, which really sums it all up. So, Sharky, in our last minute or two that we have on the program, I know, we have a lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs that are tuning in, and, they go through challenges. Some days are honestly can be pretty daunting. When you look at it, you go through some bad news, some challenges, trials and tribulations, either personally and professionally. And for entrepreneurs, those two are very, very much linked. What is that last little takeaway? What's the one thing that people can and should think about, especially as we're now in the second half of 2023, when it's just sometimes that grind is pretty difficult?
Oh, completely. And I don't think it's even just small business owners, but in particular, I think that the startups and the small business owners suffer the most because they're often bootstrapped or really having to play and wear multiple hats. They don't have the luxury of corporate where, you can hide behind a P&L that isn't yours. When the P&L is yours and when you're having to fight the battles completely on your own, say a customer doesn't pay and you're hand to mouth, those are the times that you really work out, one, who you're made of, and what you're made of, to who your advocates are around you and who you can actually hone in and really help you through those times. And I think, again, I'm kind of go back to that message before, but I found it incredibly useful as a CEO of a small bootstrapped RevOps agency. Incredibly useful to actually be quite vulnerable with the clients that I was working with to, for example, work out a solution that may not necessarily be what we put in our SLAs or put in our SOWs or put in our kind of terms and conditions. But if they were in distress, then it made no sense for me to hone in and try to get all the money I could out of them and get legal onto them, right?
Yeah.
So it was about collaborating to actually work out a solution. So I'm not suggesting that's my advice, but yes, definitely reach out and leverage your networks.
That's important advice and something we remind our listeners of constantly. And speaking of reminding our listeners, we are out of time, and I want to make sure our listeners can get in touch with you and pick up a copy of the book. How can we do that?
Absolutely. So you can head to projectlotus.info/Sarah_Harkness.
Fantastic. We'll put that in the show notes as well. But Sarah, Sharky, really appreciate you coming on, inspiring our listeners. I can't wait to follow your story some more, but thank you for inspiring and helping us thrive. Appreciate it. Quick break here on the program, all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. We'll be right back and get down to business.